Hello and welcome to the Gameweek 27 team selection video here on the FPL Scope YouTube channel. I am Mathias and I'm still struggling in FPL this season, still having a terrible season, and the latest installment in this awful season is the Gameweek 26 wildcard. I was one of the ones that went on and did the wildcard in Gameweek 26 and it backfired massively, as always this season it seems. So yeah, you can check out my ranks above me here. Current rank is awful. My usual rank is more closer to what I did last year, 17,000, and my best rank is 1,348, but that's back in 11-12. I think I was also 9,000 in 17-18, which is my second best rank of all time. But decent ranks. I'm actually a decent manager, except that this season everything's going wrong, and this past game week is yet another example of this. Because I did do the wildcard, and the reason for that was that I felt like I had not a good enough team to play in Game Week 25. I got an injury to Reece James pretty late that sort of turned me off having the same team for Game Week 26. I did the wildcard, I figured I could do it, and then save a transfer for Game Week 27, and then have double transfers for either Game Week 28 or Game Week 29. But that plan also backfired because, as you can see on my bench, I have Robert Sanchez with 0 points because he was dropped as Brighton's goalkeeper. So I have only 2 Brighton players left when one of the ideal options was having 3 Brighton players for the double game weeks to come in Game Week 27 and Game Week 29 for Brighton. So yeah, I'm left with a bit of conundrum in terms of goalkeepers. I'll get into that later, but at least it worked out in the short term for the goalkeepers, and that's because I had Danny Ward on my bench, and he came on with a huge score of 11 points. So I did think about having Raya as my second goalkeeper, and that would have been 2 points, not even 1 point for Raya. I think he ended up with 1 point in the end, so I would have lost 10 further points if I had done that. So luckily I kept Ward, mostly because he was cheaper, but luck would have it that he saved a penalty and got 11 points. But that's pretty much where my luck runs out this game week, because the rest of my team has just been terrible. One of the big reasons I wanted to do the wildcard was because I didn't have Martinelli or Saka in my original team, and I felt like Arsenal at home to Bournemouth, I need to have the best Arsenal players available. They ended up struggling in that game, but they still won 3-2, and even still, Martinelli and Saka both blanked, and Gabriel Magalhaes in defense blanked as well. So really unlucky in that match. Southampton against Leicester, I also wanted to get a Leicester player in. I would have gotten in Iheanacho if I had stayed with my original team. I would have transferred Nketiah to Iheanacho. Look at that later. But I ended up going with Maddison because he's the premier Leicester pick. And Leicester looked way better than Southampton, but they still didn't manage to score. So Maddison ended up blanking as well. And then obviously the big difference between staying with my old team and doing the wildcard is Salah got 21 points, and I didn't get any of those points. I ended up with, a 2-pointer from Kane, 2 points from, or 4 points from Haaland, 2 points from Rashford. My defense was better than my original defense, so that's where I gained a little advantage in terms of Estepinian with 6 points. But other than that, it was a pretty terrible game week. But just to go through every pick, like I said with Sanchez, I wanted to have the Brighton goalkeeper going forward for the next 10 to 12 game weeks. I figured Sanchez, he's secure. He made a mistake against Crystal Palace, but then he played against Fulham in the next game, so surely he won't be dropped, but of course he was dropped. Ward, like I said, cost-cutting move. Estepinian was always a no-brainer for me. He got a clean sheet. He could have had more points because he's so attacking. He plays so far up on the pitch currently, and he's just looking like a great pick in general. Gabriel Magalhaes, I kept him rather than having Zinchenko. They scored the same points in the end this game week, but I feel like Zinchenko is a way better option going forward. It's more out of loyalty that I picked Gabriel. Then we come to Trippier. He was actually a late substitution in. I was actually going to play Rico Henry against Fulham, and then I figured I feel like both Brentford and Newcastle will concede, but I think Trippier has a better chance of getting attacking returns. Trippier could have had an assist. He had a really good pass to Joe Linton, who proved again why he's not a striker and missed a huge chance. But yeah, Trippier looked pretty good. It's just Newcastle can't finish their chances because they don't play with Isak up front. They play with Callum Wilson up front. So if once they sort out that, I think Trippier will be back to his winning form. But anyways, like I said, Martinelli and Saka, the biggest reasons I did the wildcard, and the biggest out of those two, the biggest reason out of those two was Martinelli, who I wanted to be handing the captaincy, or I did hand him the armband captaincy for Martinelli. I figured he's been posting the best numbers out of all the Arsenal attackers as a striker. Bournemouth at home, it's the best fixture of the whole game week, and I figured I could get a huge score from Martinelli. Sadly, that didn't work out. He got a 2-pointer like everyone else. He got a 2-pointer like Saka, who was the most obvious captain pick this week, and Haaland even got an assist and outscored Martinelli as well, so lost points from that. And like I mentioned, Saka, same thing with him. Rashford, Man United struggled and failed against Liverpool. Liverpool destroyed them 7-0, and that was the end of that for Rashford. So, but Rashford is a no-brainer. I gotta have him going forward. And also the striker options are all template picks. I could have gone without Haaland, I guess, and been a bit early on selling Haaland, but I stuck with him. Figured he could score against Palace. He did get an assist at least, so there's that. Also, I selected March out of the 3 Brighton midfielders, and the reason why I did that is because March is cheaper and he's also the most consistent out of the 3. Like, he's been playing all season. He's been playing super attackingly under De Zerbi, and you never know with Mac Allister if he's going to keep playing as a number 10 or if he's going to drop back. It seems like he's going to be playing number 10 going forward, so I kind of wish I had him now. And Mitoma as well I had him the last few game weeks, so he would have been in my squad if I had kept my original squad, but he's been sort of on and off. He's been off lately, and when I had him, I had 2 blanks in a row with him, so I figured I want to move on. I don't really want him because he doesn't get as many chances, doesn't get the same numbers, underlying stats that March or Mac Allister do. So that's why I did that. Ended up with Rico Henry as my Brentford defender. I ended up benching him anyway. I did consider Pinnock as well, who obviously scored against Fulham, but I think Rico Henry is the better option going forward. Rico Henry could have also had an assist pretty early for when he passed Mbeumo, crossed a perfect cross to Mbeumo, who missed a pretty open chance. And then Botman, he's just a nice stash to have on the bench. Newcastle will get a double game week eventually. They have a double game week in game week 29, so that's why I selected him. So it ended up with 42 points. That's not good enough, but like I said, Maddison should have more points. The Arsenal players should have more points, and I should have just more points as well. Kane as well, 2 points against Wolverhampton. Didn't expect that. Expected him to do better. That's also part of the reason why I was more confident in using the wildcard, because I was going to be able to keep Kane because he plays in Game Week 28 now. But he failed at his first opportunity, and now they are out of the Champions League as well, and they look pretty awful. So I don't really know about Kane going forward, but it's just good matches, and Kane is always the one to show up. So that's pretty much my team for this game week. And then, let's move on to what my team would have looked like if I did not wildcard, because I think it's kind of interesting to look at that as well. So as you can see, on my non-wildcard squad, I would have scored 58 points compared to the 42 points I got. So I dropped 16 points, and I also lost my wildcard, obviously. I could have had 16 more points and had a wildcard in hand, because I would have done some changes. If you want to see what my ideal wildcard now, if I was wildcarding now, would be, then you can check out a video I posted on Wednesday. I basically did like the weekly wildcard draft, which is something I do every week, where I look at the best team to have going forward in FPL for like the next 4 or 5 game weeks. It's not like a free hit team where you look at just the next game week and then that's it. It is picked with the next 4 or 5 game weeks in mind. So you can check that video out if you want to as well. Anyways, this is the team I would have had if I didn't wildcard last week. And as you can see, the one place where I gained points is that I had Ward rather than having Kepa or Raya or whichever goalkeeper. Sanchez is the one that I had who was benched for Steele. But anyways, that's the only place where I would have gained points. Other than that, Salah, like I mentioned, 21 points. Huge score. He got a bit lucky or Liverpool got a bit lucky with a couple of their chances against Man United, but Salah against Man United is always huge potential for points, and I've done the same mistake twice now. Last season, on my free hit, I actually swapped out Salah on a free hit when he played Man United away, I think, and he scored, I think, 2 goals, had an assist or something, and got like a 20-point score back then as well. So second year in a row where I use a chip to sell Salah, and then he punishes me straight away against Man United. So probably not the best course of action. But anyways, like I said previously, the transfer I would have made would have been Nketiah to Iheanacho. I could have done Nketiah to Tony, I think. I haven't checked again if I had the money to do that, but I think Iheanacho is just someone I really wanted to take a punt on. I felt like Tony against Fulham, not the best game, I guess. And Iheanacho against Southampton, that should be goals, should be points. So that's what I would have done. But that transfer would have also made sure that I didn't get Andreas Pereira off the bench. And he got 8 points on the bench there. So as you can see, the bench has 19 points. That would have been also kind of annoying, but I'd still take the 16 points that I lost out of not using the wildcard, and also the advantage of having the wildcard to go. But anyways, this is the team that I would have had if I didn't wildcard, and sad times. I lost out on so many points, mainly from Salah and Mitoma, but what you gonna do? We got to move on, and we got to look forward to the next few plans that I have for the upcoming game week, and then eventually for the game weeks after that as well. So let's look into that. So here's the Game Week 27 plan. Currently, I have some options. I have one thing that I need to do, and that is selling Sanchez. I don't think he's going to regain his place. It seems like Jason Steele is going to be the main goalkeeper for Brighton going forward, if you look at what De Zerbi has said about the goalkeeping situation. So that is an option, going from Sanchez to Steele straight away, just going with the direct swap and have 2 fixtures against Leeds away and Crystal Palace at home. Seems like kind of a no-brainer, but the thing about that is that it locks me out of having another Brighton midfielder, and that is my big question of this game week. Do I bring in Mac Allister already, or do I not do that? Because if I do Sanchez to either Raya or Kepa Arrizabalaga, who are the 2 other main options that I'm considering, there are some other options as well, maybe De Gea or someone like that. De Gea, Areola, there are a couple other goalkeepers that are decent as well and have a double game week in 29, but mainly it's either Kepa or Raya, most likely Kepa at this point, I think, just because they have a much better game week 29, and I think he's better long term than Raya, and he's also slightly cheaper, but that's the goalkeeper move. That's kind of the unimportant part, because the important question for me is whether I do get Mac Allister in, and for me, the only way to get Mac Allister in is to sell either Saka or Martinelli, because as you can see, Maddison is on the bench and he plays Chelsea. But if I swapped out Maddison for Mac Allister, first of all, I would lose out another Game Week 29 double player, because Maddison doubles in Game Week 29. The Arsenal players do not, and Maddison even plays in Game Week 28 as well. So I'd lose a fixture from selling Maddison, and I'd also have to bench either Martinelli or Saka in this game week anyway to bring in Mac Allister in the starting lineup. So I don't think I'm going to do that. So the option is either Martinelli or Saka to Mac Allister. The reason that I'm leaning towards Saka is because I'm probably going to sell the other Arsenal midfielder. If I do sell one of them now, I'm going to sell the other one in Game Week 29. And for Game Week 27 and Game Week 28 only, I feel like Martinelli has a better or higher ceiling than Saka, because Martinelli is going to play as the number 9 against Fulham. That's pretty much like 90% sure about that. Trossard is not training, and Nketiah's not training. Jesus just got back into training, so it seems pretty certain that Martinelli will start up front in that game, and that's a pretty good game as well, because Fulham are lacking Joao Palhinha, and we saw against Brentford that they conceded 3 goals, so they're not the same team defensively without probably their best player, to be honest. So that's the consideration with Arsenal, and yeah. But the thing about Mac Allister, as we're going to look into, is that Brighton have posted such good underlying numbers. It's kind of crazy. They're back to being the expected goal kings, like they were a couple seasons back, where they get a lot of expected goals and they don't score that much, but they always look really threatening. And Mac Allister has been the main culprit in terms of having a lot of XG. He's also gotten point returns. He scored a penalty and got an assist against West Ham. So a lot of people are trying to get Mac Allister in, especially now that he's playing in that number 10 role. So let's just look ahead and see, or not even look ahead, look back at the Brighton fixtures and see how they have performed in the later game weeks, because they have been pretty much the best team in the league in terms of expected goals. So they're both top for expected goals and expected goals conceded for the last 6 game weeks, as we discussed in the FPL Scope podcast, which was posted Thursday. So you can check that out as well if you want to see more from me and also from Kimo and Kevin, my co-hosts on the podcast. But anyways, let's move on and look at the Brighton previous fixtures and see how they did. So as you can see here, they have played 6 matches, or the last 6 matches they have played, they have 2 things that are really interesting. And the one thing is, if you look at just the results, they have a loss against Fulham, draw against Crystal Palace, a draw against Brighton, and barely eking out a 1-0 win over Bournemouth. But if you look at the underlying stats, the expected goals for all the matches, This is taken from Understat, by the way, which is a really good like free site if you want to see like, it's not the best expected data, but it's pretty good. So anyways, if you look at the expected goals in terms of all the matches, they win every single time. And how they lost against Fulham when they have 2.71 expected goals and Fulham have 0.22 expected goals, it's beyond me. If you look at the highlights there as well, Mac Allister, several chances, Mitoma looks dangerous, March looks really good, and they still didn't score. So that's the thing with Brighton. Is it just same old Brighton, XG Kings, and they don't really take advantage of it? Or is this Brighton against West Ham fixture more indicative of what they're going to be now under De Zerbi rather than under Potter, who is struggling at Chelsea? So maybe they will be better and more efficient going forward than they have been in the past. But still, in the past 6 game weeks, they have been pretty inefficient, as you can see. Crystal Palace as well. They drew against Crystal Palace somehow. That's when Robert Sanchez did the big mistake that probably got him dropped in the end. And Palace only had 0.93 expected goals. Brighton had 2.65 expected goals back then as well. And they had, yet again, in that match as well, huge chances. So that's the thing with Brighton. When you're deciding who you're going to captain, who you're going to bring in as a midfielder, if you look at purely the highlights and the expected data, then Brighton players seems like a must. You need to get a Brighton midfielder. But if you look at the actual goals that they've scored in a lot of these matches, 0 goals against Fulham, 1 goal against Crystal Palace, 1 goal against Bournemouth, it's not that big of a deal to have 2 Brighton midfielders. So, or at least as a captain. Obviously, I think having 2 Brighton midfielders is the ideal thing to have now, even though there are a lot of good midfielders. That's the thing with my current team. That's so hard for me. But anyways, that's just an issue with Brighton. You never really know what you're going to get. Is it going to be a lot of goals, or is it going to be underperformance and inefficient team? So that's the struggle with Brighton, and that's why I'm sort of unsure about what to do. Going back to the screen with the current plans, you have the Arsenal players, Martinelli and Saka. If you compare, let's say Saka then, compared to Mac Allister, you can see that Brighton have 2 fixtures this game week. Arsenal only have 1, but that changes in game week 28 when Arsenal will have 1 fixture and Brighton will have 0. And that's unlike the game week 27, game week 29 fixtures where you have an awesome bench. Game week 28 is a game week where you got to play all your players that you have remaining, because your whole bench will be players blanking, because you'll have Rashford, you'll have Haaland, you'll have all these players, Salah potentially, players blanking, and the Brighton players obviously blanking as well. So pretty much in terms of game week 27 and game week 28, Brighton play against Leeds away and Crystal Palace at home, while Arsenal play against Fulham away without Joao Palhinha, which is a huge deficit for them. Leeds have looked better defensively lately than Fulham have without Palhinha. And then next week, Arsenal get the game that Brighton have in hand this week, Crystal Palace at home. Arsenal have that same fixture in the next game week. So that's also when Saka or Martinelli might be a great captaincy option as well. That's the other thing about this, that you might want to captain, or most likely you'd like to captain an Arsenal player in game week 28. So that's why I'm sort of leaning against doing the Saka to Mac Allister move. But if I do it, it's because I want to captain Mac Allister. So that leaves us with the one final thing, and that is who I want to captain. Do I want to captain Ivan Toney, or do I want to captain a Brighton midfielder? I could also captain March, to be fair, if I just keep the same team and hope that March outscores Mac Allister. That could very well happen, but I feel like Mac Allister is the main guy to get because he's on penalties and he's posting amazing numbers as the number 10 for Brighton. So he seems like the most likely captaincy option if you're going to go with one of the Brighton midfielders, in my view at least. But Toney as well, Brighton, or Brentford even, that's who Toney plays for, they haven't been posting the best underlying numbers away from home in terms of expected goals and stuff and shots on goal and those types of things. But in terms of Toney himself, he actually scores pretty similarly away as he does at home. He scores 6 points per match away and he scores 5.9 points per match in total. So it's pretty much the same in terms of home and away for Toney. So that's why I feel like he's a great option. Everton and Southampton, 2 pretty bad teams. You know, it's Sean Dyche. They could be good defensively. Southampton have actually been surprisingly good defensively lately as well. But I think Toney is just a really safe captaincy option. I think he's going to get at least 1 goal in one of the matches. And he could also, we've seen earlier in the season that he scored a hat-trick. And it could be explosive as well. He could have had a lot more goals against Fulham. So I feel like he's just a safe captaincy option. Meanwhile, the Brighton players are more a risky play, especially because there are 3 options that are really good and they like rotate on who scores a lot of points. It could be March one week, it could be Mac Allister one week, it could be Mitoma one week. So that's also the question, like which one of those 3 is the main captaincy option to have. And I think if I have to guess, I think one of the Brighton midfielders will outscore Tony, but I don't think 2 or 3, potentially 2, but all 3 will not outscore Tony. So you could end up captaining, for example, March, and he does not outscore Tony, but Mitoma and Mac Allister do. And then you're sort of struggling towards, like, compared to everyone else anyway. So Tony is just a really safe option. If you want to go differential, you can go with one of the Brighton midfielders, or you could even go with Estepinian, who Brighton, if you look at the expected numbers again, let's go back to that screen. In terms of expected goals conceded, 0.25 against West Ham, 0.22 against Fulham, 0.93 against Crystal Palace, 0.91 against Bournemouth. It's under 1 expected goal per game the last 4 game weeks, or the last 4 matches for them. Obviously, Leicester and Liverpool, tougher fixtures, but even then they kept a clean sheet against Liverpool, and Liverpool just put 7 goals past Man United. So Brighton defense is really, really good. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with that. So for me, I think currently I'm leaning towards doing Tony captain, and I'm leaning towards doing Kepa in as goalkeeper, but that might also change. I'm going to post my team on my own Twitter profile, as you can see under me right there. You can see my my Twitter handle, so you can add me there if you want to. You can follow this YouTube channel, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel and give us a like and comment down below as well. Got some nice comments under the weekly wildcard draft video that I posted on Wednesday. And people are tuning into the podcast as well, so it's really nice to see more people tuning into the podcast. And I'm going to try to keep this up with more regular videos. And see you all next time.